Good morning, I'm Jenny Fabia, and I invite you to do this 18-minute interview with me today to have more information about your career. So, let's start. What is like to become a UP professor?
Being a UP professor is quite an enjoyable job. You get to meet lots of people, and then you have fresh ideas. Young people always have insights, and it's not a static job. It's very dynamic, constantly changing, and so you have to adapt to the students.
So, why did this type of job interest you?
I really like teaching and mentoring people, even when I was in the industry, because in fact I'm a chemical engineering graduate, and I work in the industry still. I lean towards training and teaching other people. That's why I decided to return to that.
Do you have any other work outside the country?
No. Presently, I'm pursuing graduate studies and I'm teaching, which is compatible actually with doing graduate work.
So, how and when did you get started teaching here in
UP? After graduation, I first started teaching at UP San Fernando, which is many years ago. And then, a few years after, I went back to the industry and I worked as a chemical engineer. So from there, I held different management positions in production. So I practiced as a chemical engineer. The reason I went to the industry because when I was teaching, people would tell me, why am I not practicing my profession? And then later on, I realized that I really like teaching. So after so many years in the industry, I decided to go back to the academy.
So, the job that you mentioned and experiences that led you to your present career, what specific company or organization did you work for?
In the past?
Yes.
Okay. After UP, I worked in the organic industry, specifically in medicine, ophthalmology.
So, what part of your job do you find most satisfying?
Right now, it's the exchange with the students, exchange with my fellow faculty members, because you get a lot of ideas, and then you progress a lot. When you're working with young people also, you tend to have this vitality, which because I work in the industry before, and most of the people there are adults, so you sort of become when you're working in the industry, you're very serious, and there's a lot of pressure, and you start becoming a little bit cynical. But when you work as a teacher, you feel always young. It's true, because you're exposed to young people. Most teachers, it's the added advantage of teaching, which is not very obvious. Of course, the teaching process itself is enjoyable, but that's an added plus.
So, what about the most challenging in teaching?
The most challenging, when you're teaching, it's not personalized because you have to teach a group. And sometimes your technique is not adapted for certain people, and you cannot do anything about it because you have to handle the whole group. You want to address certain needs, but how would you say it? Your capabilities, not actually capabilities, but more on resources are limited. You cannot address everybody's needs, which is sometimes frustrating, because you see certain students who really exert a lot of effort and they need a lot of help, and they're asking for help, but you cannot always respond to that need because there are so many students.
So, do you find your job exciting?
Of course.
So why?
It's exciting because it's unpredictable. Really. Each day you don't know what will happen. Like yesterday when we were having the exam in math, and then suddenly one of my students had nosebleed. So he said, "You really took the that saying seriously, na nosebleed ako." So, so things like this happen when you're teaching. And of course, what else? When you have different activities, and then you see that certain students, like one time I had this project where we were also there, the decorations, and I was really, really surprised how artistic the students were. And then it's a mathematical project, but their artistic sides came out, and it wasn't only me who was impressed. A lot of people were commenting about how beautiful the decorations were. So this is part of the exciting things that happen in teaching.
So, as a professor, how do you think personally UP differ from other universities?
Okay. When I was working, there were UP graduates and non-UP graduates in our company. Of course, we can't say that other universities don't generate good graduates. They do, and they're also very good. But the distinction is UP students UP graduates are usually very self-reliant. Like when I handle an engineer who's from UP, I only give certain the objectives, and then I let them design the project or formulate the project. Whereas if you work with other people, of course you cannot generalize this. There are universities who turn out graduates who are also good, no? But for UP students, the management is very minimal. Whereas for people from other schools, you really have to guide them. And then sometimes you have to spoon feed the steps, which is a little bit tedious.
What are the salary ranges for various levels?
I'm not very familiar with that, no? For the salaries.
How about your salary?
My salary, well, it's okay. Given the time frame that given the working hours that I'm giving out.
It's per hour?
Yes.
How many digits?
Digits, it's not very near my industry salary. I was earning what I earn now in a year, comparatively in a few months' time.
Okay. Does UP provide monetary and non-monetary incentives for hardworking professors?
Yes, there are incentives which are given, I think, every semester and every university.
What kind of incentives?
They give clothing allowances, merit incentives, what else? Christmas bonus. But of course, if I compare it with private companies, it's not really, you don't really, when you teach, you have to accept the fact that it won't be comparable to what you're getting in corporate work. It's very hard. So it's really what you call the noble profession.
Okay. How does a professor progress in your field?
In the academe, it's important to go to graduate studies. If you don't have a master's degree and eventually a PhD, you won't really go very far. And then at the same time, you have to get your work published. That means, aside from teaching, you have to do research. University work is not simply purely teaching. You have to generate output in terms of research. So the best ones balance the two. They have a lot of papers, and they also teach well.
So, a while ago, you said that you're taking graduate
Yes.
school. If you take that, it will increase your salary also.
Yes. And also, not just the salary, but the level. Because there are levels for assistant professors, associate professors, full professors.
So, how would you describe the working atmosphere and the people with whom you work with?
In UP.
Yes.
Actually, it's a very good working atmosphere. People here are very friendly, also supportive. Like I'm conducting a study and everybody's helping me. And what else? If you need certain resources, you just need to ask and they will help you.
Is there a flexibility related to dress? Work hours, vacation schedule, or date of residence?
For dress codes, it's very flexible. They don't really require us to wear corporate clothes or you just have to dress, I suppose, in an acceptable way. Of course, not in shorts. But unlike in other companies where they require you to conform to certain dress codes, in UP, in fact, if you go to other colleges, it depends, I suppose, on the college. Other colleges even wear more casual clothing, especially on the, maybe if you're working as an artist, it depends, I suppose.
How about the work hours?
The work hours is quite flexible because, as I've said a while ago, aside from teaching, you have to do research. So sometimes in research, you have to go do field work, and you have to take your work home. So it's not like working in private companies wherein you have to have a 9-to-5 routine. Actually, when you work in a management position, you don't really have an 8-hour shift. You devote your time to the company. So sometimes you work 8 to 7, you hardly see the day. It's not really flexible.
So what if you suddenly want to have a vacation? You can just leave your class? Or?
Of course not. There are requirements. You have to file a leave. And then, of course, UP imposes certain measures to require teachers to attend their classes. Just like the students. But when I was a student in UP before, it wasn't really that well implemented. I frequently tell my students that there were teachers then who would be gone for a month without informing the students. But that was then. I've seen the improvement later because after college, I attended other graduate courses in Viviman, and there were changes. They established hotlines, and then you have feedback. So I suppose those are means to regulate the attendance of teachers.
So, if your job progresses as you like, what would be the next step in your career?
In my career, I would like to work more on the study of the psychology and mathematics. More research work in that field.
But still, you still want to teach
at the same time. So it's like in conjunction with teaching.
If your work here suddenly eliminated, what kind of work do you feel prepared to do?
In research, still in research.
You don't want to go back in your previous...
In the industry, I don't think so. Because I reinvented myself many years ago when I decided, because it happens. When you're young, you have this vision of yourself, and then as you grow older, you realize that you lean towards this profession or that goal, and then sometimes you reinvent yourself, which is what I did. I came back to the academy and I started teaching again.
Aside from being a college graduate, what other types of credentials or licenses are required for this job?
For teaching math, actually I also have a license to teach high school math. I took it because I also wanted to pursue research in that field, and I felt that if I wasn't licensed as a high school teacher, I wouldn't be credible as a researcher there. But for college math, there aren't really any licenses required. I also have another license I'm a licensed chemical engineer because I practiced before as a chemical engineer. But in math, what's more important is having a master's and a PhD.
Is it required that if you want to become a UP professor, that you are graduate with honors?
No, it's not required.
But you have
It's a plus. When they hire, of course, when perhaps the HR would shortlist those with honors, but it's not really a prerequisite to teaching in UP because, in fact, there are people with who graduate with honors are, of course, good. Okay, we can't dispute that. But UP students who graduate without honors are also good. Okay. Sometimes during their college years, they're probably searching for themselves or they're having some internal conflicts, and or they haven't decided their career path properly. There are a lot of cases wherein they're not, how would you say it, functioning in their optimum level. It's true, because usually when you enter UP, you're an honor student from your high school, or you're considered one of the best. You're the cream of the crop, and then when it's, I suppose, a matter of maturity. Some students who enter UP are more mature than others, and they're the ones who are able to harness their talents. And later on, when people graduate, you can see that others who did not graduate with honors are very good at work. Yes, there are people who are good at practicing the principles, and there are others who are just good at theory.
So can you say that those who are delayed or graduate later than their batch, they actually do well in their field?
From my experience, graduating with honors is not really the basis for success. If we look at reality, even a lot of studies have shown that CEOs are not always honor students. They say that there are other requirements in succeeding in your career, and that is the people aspect. Even in our company, you could see successful managers who are criminology graduates or certificate holders, but they are very good with people skills, and they have native intelligences. They're able to manage work activities without really knowing the theory. It's really fascinating when you go out there and observe people. And I've seen a case, but I'm not going to say specifically because there was a UP graduate who was really excellent, and then when this UP graduate practiced in the field, he was very good in the academy, but unfortunately when he went to the industry, he didn't turn out well for me.
Um, um, how well did your college experience prepare you for this job?
This job or because actually my college education was for chemical engineering. So I would say that my chemical engineering degree really helped me in my industrial career because I manage raw materials department. So it's for organic. It's mostly laboratory work and plastics. So my degree was designed for that kind of work, and I needed the technical expertise to manage the different departments that I was handling before. Now at the same time, since engineering degrees usually have a lot of mathematics courses, so I was equally prepared to teach math.
Did you join organizations in college?
Unfortunately, no. When people ask me why, I have this misguided belief. Because when I was a freshman, some of my friends joined certain organizations and sororities before me. And I had advanced feedback on how they entered the organizations and their sororities. So I had difficulty trying to establish the relationship between acceptance and hurting people, and not really link the two. So for me, it was a stand. I said that if you want to enter a group or an institution, I felt that you could actually have certain activities that are productive and at the same time challenging. Like, why not let's a student who wants to enter an organization help in, how would you call that, the house for pension, not pension houses, the one for old,
Home for the
yes, right, home for the aged, hospitals, or orphanages, things like that, community work. Those are just examples.
If you could do things all over again, would you choose the same path for yourself?
Yes.
Why?
For me, there are really no ifs in life. What happens is what will really happen. All you can do is to plan for the future, and I don't really believe in hope for the best, because you can control your destiny. You just have to be clear about your goals, and then what I frequently say is, if you have a goal and you want to achieve it, you also have to examine the price. What price you have to pay to achieve that goal, and then check yourself if you're willing to pay the price.
So you can say that you're really satisfied with where you are now and what you have achieved.
Yes, I'm satisfied with what I have achieved in life and what has happened in my life and what I am. I believe all my experiences have helped in developing me. And I am what I am because of my past. So I don't really believe in regret. Of course, you use the past to improve the future. Okay? But to wallow in regret is not wise.
Okay, so what do you like most about UP?
About UP, of course, UP has how would you say it, standard of excellence. So in here, when you teach, the students are also part of cream of the crop of the group of students, and hence you can design your course to develop critical thinking. Because sometimes when you also have to adapt to the group. So in UP, since you're handling students who have higher intellectual level, hence you are freer to execute activities that develop those higher order skills.
So, do you have any special words of warning or encouragement for students like me as a result of your experience?
Warning. Well, I've mentioned before that it's a matter of goal setting. Anything is possible. I've tested it frequently. If you want something, you can achieve it. But the thing is, you have to evaluate the price. And if you're willing to pay the price, you can achieve the goal. Okay? In the past, I tested this. I have this goal, and I try to visualize achieving that goal, and I paid the price. And after paying the price, I achieved the goal. And it was really a high goal. I set it very, very high, and I said, I wonder if this is possible. And after a few years, I achieved it. But in the process, I had to forego a lot of things. I had to sacrifice a lot.
How about for those who aspire to become a UP professor someday? Do you have any message for them?
If you want to be a good professor, one of the traits that you have to possess is patience. If you're not a very patient person, I don't think you'll be an effective professor. And also, you have to love working with young people. Because of course, young people are different from older people. And they said that as you grow older, you become more stable. And there are certain things that manifest in your behavior, like you start disliking rock music, or you prefer mellow music, or you prefer peace and quiet. So, of course, these are things, generational differences. So, you should have the skill to bridge the gap and then establish rapport with students. So that's my advice. If you can do that, you'll be a good teacher. Aside from, of course, having the proper mastery of content. You can be patient or enthusiastic, but of course, if you don't have mastery of content, you don't have a right to teach. You don't have the right to teach the material, because how can you teach if you haven't mastered the material, right?
So that's it. Thank you for your time and doing this interview with me. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.